Microphone. Call to order, Board of Zoning Appeals for December 12th, 2022. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our November 28th, 2022 meeting. So moved. A motion by Mr. King, second by Mrs. Peters to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on, we do have a special request or continuance. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. I do not see the petitioner here. The Greenwood Little League is requesting a continuance of their variance. They had misunderstood the mailing notice, and therefore they did not meet either our rules of procedure or the state requirement for notifying the neighbors. They do have their newspaper mailing in, so if we are to continue it to wrong
First meeting in January.
yes, then they should be okay to use that newspaper notice, but they will be doing the mailing notice so that can meet our standards if you continue them.
I don't know if that's them.
Yeah. Who just joined remotely?
It was me testing the audio.
Okay. All right. Well, seeing as we have no petitioner here and we have a request to planning staff to continue, we'll take a motion.
Let's do the January 9th, 2023 meeting.
Thank you.
And they're okay. Yes, according to the planning director, they are paying for the January 9th meeting, and if the notice was defective, we should not be, I would recommend you don't have a hearing without proper notice.
Motion to move it to January 9th. Mr. Mull, second. Mr. King, motion to move that docket to the January 9th, 2023 meeting. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. We will move that to January 9th.
Thanks. We will make sure the petitioner gets this information.
Appreciate it, Mr. Nelson. Okay, findings of fact for BZA 2022-041, which is a development standards variance for Garrett Companies for 374 North Emerson.
Chairman, in consideration of the statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number BZA 2022-041.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Mull. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. We have no old business. Any old business from the floor? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. One docket now remaining, which is BZA 2022-042. That's the development standards variance by Scannell Properties requesting relief from 3 sections of the Unified Development Ordinance. The first one being the side elevation to allow materials other than a dominant material on the front elevation. The second one is to allow an accessory structure under 300 square feet to be clad in steel metal panel material. And the third is to allow a fence exceeding 4 feet in height in the front yard. Is everything, are all the notices and everything in order?
Notices are in order and in the file.
Certified copy of the comprehensive plan and the Unified Development Ordinance have also been placed into the record from the file.
We are good to proceed. All those wishing to present for or against this docket, please stand and be sworn in by our secretary. I guess before we do that, is there anyone remote wishing to speak to this docket? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead.
Yes.
All right, come on up to the podium, sir. And state your name and address for the record.
You have a PowerPoint to it. Go with my presentation. Not sure if it's loaded on there. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
And is that microphone is on, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So for the record, my name is Justin Alashik. I work for Scannell Properties, and I'll be representing ourselves as the this variance request. So just a brief overview, Skinnell Properties, we're a privately owned real estate development company, headquartered here out of Indianapolis, been in business since 1990, done a ton of great projects in Greenwood, and hope to continue that partnership with this upcoming project. So this is going to be the project location. It's going to be located within our existing Worsville Commerce Center developments. Specifically, the overall project is going to take the remaining 2 lots within this development, lots 4 and lots 5. So this will be a great way to round out our project if we are able to move forward for our development. So this is just a concept site plan that's been provided by our build-to-suit tenant. This is not representative of an engineer's drawing, but it does give a good representation of what the final site plan is going to look like. So our end user here is going to be a freight distributor who's going to be proposing to utilize a metal panel building within the dock section, and I can explain that a little bit further a little bit later on, but wanted to give just a quick high-level overview of what the site plan looks like. So with our first variance request, our request is to allow a side elevation to be clad in a permitted material other than the dominant material at the front facade. So with the strict requirements with our build-to-suit tenant, how they essentially how they construct their building is the office pod, which is going to be located nearest to Allen Road. That's going to be all your typical tilt-up concrete panel, precast panel, whatever they decide to go with there. So that area is going to be, cast in the typical precast panel. The side elevations and specifically the dock area, the way these service docks are constructed and how the building's constructed, it being a clear span, pre-engineered metal building, the typical precast concrete panel, it's just not a viable construction material for use in this particular area of the building. Without getting into too much detail, it just creates structural issues with the precast panel, the building slab, the construction doors. It's just been found to not really work as a use as a material in this type of building. As far as our project goes, we intend to utilize a textured smooth wall metal panel on the side elevations, which is intended to mimic the look of a precast concrete panel as closely as possible. And I do have a sample of that panel that I can share with the board so you have an idea of what that's going to look like. The proposed panel, it carries a 20-year warranty and can be repainted as needed. I know that's always a maintenance concern is a new material, how long is it going to last? And is it going to be something that is going to erode quicker than the typical panel would? We like to say this isn't your typical 1980s concrete panel where it's the ribs. The technology's come a long way, and it does carry a pretty significant warranty. With that, our tenant, it's a tenant who likes to stay in the same spot once they're in. I shared with staff that it's going to be an expensive facility to construct for them, and once they're in, they don't really like to move. So it would really be a cornerstone to this development and Greenwood as a whole area. And as I mentioned, the front elevation would be clad in the precast concrete panels. So with that, this is just a representation of the building elevations. As noted, the north elevation facing Allen Road, going to be all concrete panel. It's going to be the textured concrete that's required in this development, and is really going to be the front facing portion of this. That office pod wraps around the east and west elevations, but then from that office pod south is going to be clad in the metal panel. The only exception to that is it's what they call a dispatch pod. It's essentially a remote office that's located kind of in the center of the east elevation. That'll be precast as well, as opposed to the middle panel. With that, before I continue on, I will break out my sample panel. So this is representative of what the final product would look like. The color might not be the exact same, and that's going to be determined by the tenant, but that gives the representation of what we would be placing on the side of the building. It'd be concealed fasteners, and from the distance that this building's going to be viewed, it's going to essentially look like a smooth wall. So I'll get into kind of finding the facts. The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because the locations where the alternate material will face occur on either areas of the development which have a matching zoning designation, which is IL, or agricultural zoning with minimal existing development. Large screening berms and substantial landscape plantings will be constructed along the Allen Road right away, as well as the east property line, and that was a part of the commitments to this property. The landscape berm, if you've driven past this area recently, it's a 12-foot tall berm with substantial landscape plantings along Allen Road and a 6-foot berm along the east property line. And again, the selected material will be designed to mimic precast concrete panel. The use and value of the area adjacent will not be substantially affected. Again, the large screening berms and landscape plantings blocking the public's view. The design intended to mimic the concrete panel as best as possible. And just the fact that metal panels are an acceptable material for use on the front elevation of buildings. It's already allowed for the Greenwood zoning ordinance. It's just how it's worded. We can't use it on the side elevation because our predominant front elevation material is the concrete. And then strict application of the terms in zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties just due to the strict tenant requirements. The concrete panels aren't a viable construction material. Continuing on, just a brief high-level rendering, just showing how this development will fit into the park. And then we prepared some project renderings just from the Allen Road right away that shows how the building will be viewed from the public when the landscaping and the berms are in place. So this is from the existing intersection into the development off of Allen Road. This has been constructed with Lot 3 already. And you can see the building is somewhat visible due to the gap for the construction entrance, but primarily you're seeing the office pod, which is going to stand higher than the stock section. As we move down Allen Road, this is kind of in the center of our lot. You're really not going to see the building due to the height of the berm, as well as the height of the building. This building's actually a little bit shorter than what's out there existing due to the use of the building. So further screening it from view. Here's at the corner of our site. Again, it's really not visible from the right of way. And then down at the southeast corner of our southeast corner, again, looking across the detention ponds, it's somewhat visible, but again, from the distance that you'd be looking, you're really not going to be able to tell that this is anything but just an industrial facility here. And then I just threw some project examples. I will point out these are not projects that Skinell Properties has done. These are just example projects that was provided by Farco Pruden, who we've been corresponding with on the material selection. So again, just representative projects, but nothing specific to what Skinell Properties has done. Moving on, our variance number 2 is to utilize steel as a building material on an accessory structure under 300 square feet. We intend to use the same panel on the accessory structure as on the primary building. Again, just the way the ordinance is worded, it specifically says we can't use steel on accessory structures. The approvals will not be injurious to the public health and safety. For a lot of the same reasons, proposed panels would match what is provided on the side and rear elevations of the primary structure. Metal panels that approved use on accessory structures, it's just specifically not steel panel, how it was written, and then bringing up the landscape berms and the plantings are going to block this accessory structure from view right away. Continuing on, The use and value will not be affected due to the berms and it matching the material of the primary building. And strict application of the zoning ordinance will result in difficulties just due to the size of the structure we're using it on. It's about 200 square feet. Concrete panel is again a difficult material to use on an accessory structure like this. And our intent is to match the materials on the primary building. Continuing on, last one, variance number 3 is to allow a fence up to 10 feet in height to be placed in the front yard of the building. Again, going back to tenant requirements, their employee lot, they have this enclosed in a security fence to help protect their employees as well as the employee vehicles. This is a 24-hour operation, so some employees on the latest shifts will be coming out in the middle of the night, and they like to have that added security factor for their employees and their vehicles being left on site. I will note that we've requested up to 10 feet, but we don't intend to utilize something up to 10 feet. That 10 feet is simply to match what's allowable in all proportions of the developments. More than likely, it'll fall between the 6 and 8 foot range. This will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because the fence is actually meant to act as a security measure, protecting employees and vehicles during their shifts. The fence is going to be located behind the screen berms, so we're not going to be seeing it from the public right away. Again, we're not going up to 10 feet, and that berm along Allen Road goes up to 12 feet with landscape plantings. And the added fence height would not create any unsafe traffic maneuvers or line of sight issues, again, because it's going to be located behind that berm. You don't have any issues with making the turns in and out of the development. The use and value of the adjacent property will not be affected. Going back to the landscape berms, broken record, but you're not going to see much behind those berms. And again, fence is meant to act as a security measure, reducing incidents of theft in the area. And then strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance result in practical difficulties simply because the security measure would not be permitted around the employee lot, reducing safety of employees and their vehicles, and forcing the tenant to have additional monitoring and policing of their pedestrian parking lot. So with that, I appreciate you taking the time to listen to our presentation. I will answer any questions the board may have.
First, just for all three, I want to note that the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. Mine does not have that, so I'm not sure. This Peters had a version of the staff report that option 1 did say it was regulated, but the other 2 did not. But mine, I noticed, does not have that discrepancy. So I guess we should clarify it is not regulated under the code correctly. Good, correct. Sorry. Okay. Anything else, anything from staff? I noticed, their findings were favorable. The only condition was the final plan substantially conforming to the building elevations. I think it is indeed.
Exactly, and I think he did a good job of covering what they're trying to do and intending to do. I guess with the metal panel sample, they did meet with staff ahead of time to review the material that they were proposing. Staff felt that the panel meets the intent of what the UDO is looking for. It's called a metal panel, but as you guys can feel and see, it doesn't look like a sheet metal or a pole barn. It looks like a concrete panel, which would be allowed, especially a lot easier to work with when you are talking about a structure under 300 square feet to deal with something a lot more easy to maneuver. And then, like you said, there is a large firm with landscaping that will be preventing most of this from ever being seen from the public. I suppose if you looked hard enough or climbed to the top of it, you would see it, but really staff did not have any concerns, and we thought that these would benefit the project as a whole and the safety of the project as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any final comments? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Questions from the board, Mr. Mull?
No, I'm good.
Mr. King?
No question.
Ms. Peters?
No questions?
I have no questions either. This was very well presented and put together, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, I will take a motion to accept everything into the record. Sorry.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of presenter, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Mull. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Take a motion on request number 1 to allow side elevations to be clad in a permitted material other than the dominant material on the front facade.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this request with the one condition, which is the final plans shall substantially conform to the building elevations depicted in Exhibit D.
Motion to approve with the one condition, second by Mr. Mull. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Request number 2 for this allow steel to be used as a building material for an accessory structure under 300 square feet in the area.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve this with the condition that final plan shall conform to building elevations depicted in Exhibit D.
Motion by Mr. Mull, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. And the third one, to allow a fence up to 10 feet in height in a front yard.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this, excuse me, this request with the one condition of final plans shall substantially conform to the building elevations depicted in Exhibit D.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Mull. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Also, I'll take a motion to direct the Corporation Council to draft written findings of fact.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2022-042. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as a final decision and final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Mull. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. You are welcome to proceed. Your work staff will take final action on January 9th, but it doesn't keep you from going forward.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. As noted earlier, BZA 2022-043 has been continued. So any new business from the floor? Seeing none, any announcements?
This is the only meeting in December, so don't show up in a couple weeks because we will not be here. That being said, we do have agendas filling up for January, so come ready for 2023. That's all.
Excellent. John?
I have none. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I was gonna say the only thing I have is Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, since we won't be seeing you until the 1st of January. Looking forward to the new year with everybody. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Adjourned by Mr. Mull. We are adjourned. Stop recording.